your weekly shot of Gen AI news.
Man, the AI world just keeps moving faster, doesn't it? It feels like every week there's a whole new set of headlines to wrap our heads around.
It certainly keeps things interesting. Definitely keeps us on our toes, I'll tell you that.
No kidding. That's why I'm pumped to dive into this week's AI Espresso with you. It's like a shot of, well, espresso for keeping up with all the latest developments.
I like that. And this week's brew is a strong one.
It really is. We've got OpenAI, Voyage AI, Microsoft, even Google making waves all in just the past few days. Where should we even start?
Well, that new Canvas thing from OpenAI is generating some serious buzz, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I saw that. A dedicated space for writing and coding. It almost seems like they're taking a page from Anthropic's playbook with their artifacts feature, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. I think it's a really interesting trend we're seeing. AI tools are becoming more specialized, more focused on particular tasks. Instead of having one gigantic AI that tries to do everything, we're getting these purpose-built tools, each fine-tuned for specific jobs. Sort of like, well, think about a Swiss Army knife versus like a professional chef's set of knives.
And you need those specialized knives if you're going to create anything in the kitchen, right?
Right.
So what's the reason for this shift towards specialization? Is it just about making AI more user-friendly, or is there something more to it?
I think it's a bit of both, honestly. On the one hand, yeah, having these dedicated workspaces like Canvas does make AI more accessible for a lot of people. You don't need to be a coding whiz to write a blog post or create some marketing copy or whatever. But I think it also speaks to a deeper understanding of AI and how it can be applied most effectively. If you can really narrow down a specific task, you can train those algorithms on a much more focused set of data, and the results, well, they can be much more accurate, more sophisticated.
So it's not just about dumbing things down for the average Joe. It's about maximizing AI's potential within a particular area. What would that mean, practically speaking, for someone using, say, Canvas to write a novel?
Imagine this. You can generate text, but then refine it, adjust the length, target very specific areas to edit, even translate it into different languages, all within the same tool, without switching between different programs. It's about making the creative process more streamlined.
They're really trying to empower writers in this case. Speaking of empowerment, another company I noticed in AI Espresso was Voyage AI, and they're tackling a problem that I think everyone's at least a little worried about: AI hallucinations. You know, when AI just seems to make stuff up.
Yeah, those hallucinations can be a real problem. Voyage is laser focused on making AI more accurate, especially for businesses that rely on getting things right. They're big on what they call retrieval augmented generation systems.
Okay, gotta admit, that sounds a bit like jargon to me. What in the world is retrieval augmented generation? Give it to me in plain English.
You got it. Essentially, it's about teaching AI to double check its work. Instead of relying solely on its internal knowledge base, which might be incomplete or biased, a retrieval augmented generation system, or AAG system as they call them, cross-references its output with a separate external database of factual information.
Right.
So if the AI generates something that contradicts the verified data, boom, red flag. It's like having a built-in fact checker for AI, which is pretty neat.
Okay, now that makes sense. So no more making up random facts in the middle of an important presentation or report. But AI Espresso mentioned something about Voyage using contextual embedding models. What are those? Is that part of this fact-checking process?
That's the really clever part. Think about how we humans read. We don't just understand words in isolation. We use the entire sentence, the paragraph, the context to figure out the meaning. Voyage's contextual embedding models, they're trying to do the same thing. They don't just analyze individual words, they analyze the relationships between words, understanding how those relationships shape meaning.
So it's like teaching AI to read between the lines, just like we do.
Exactly. And they claim that this approach is not only more accurate, but also potentially more cost-effective than other methods because they're not sifting through mountains of data every time they need to check something, just a focused, carefully chosen set of information. Not surprisingly, investors are pretty excited about this. Voyage just raised a cool $28 million in funding.
Wow, 28 million. They must be onto something big. Now, we can't talk about AI advancements without mentioning Microsoft. What's new in the world of their Copilot system?
Oh, Microsoft's definitely been busy. They've got some really interesting upgrades to Copilot, pushing the boundaries of what we've come to expect from these AI assistants. Picture this. You're staring at your computer screen, maybe looking at a complicated graph or an image, and you have a question about it. With their new Copilot Vision feature, you can just ask Copilot directly.
Wait a minute, you're saying it can analyze what's on my screen in real time and then actually answer my questions?
That's right. It's like having a superpowered research assistant looking over your shoulder, able to understand not just text on your screen, but images, videos, even things that are difficult to put into words.
Okay, that's seriously cool. What else did they pack into this update? I'm already impressed.
Well, how about this? You can now interact with Copilot entirely through voice commands with their new Copilot voice. No more typing, just talk to it like you would a real assistant. And they've even added several new synthetic voices so you can personalize the experience, make it your own. It's all about integrating AI seamlessly into your workflow.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly convenient having this AI assistant that learns your habits and anticipates your needs. But I have to admit, part of me also wonders how much is this thing actually watching and learning about me, and what are they doing with all that data?
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge question, and it's something we can't ignore as these AI tools become more integrated into our lives. It's interesting, though, this new Copilot personalization feature, it's actually not being rolled out in the EU or the UK just yet.
Oh, really? Why is that?
It's probably because those regions have stricter data privacy laws, so Microsoft might have to jump through some extra hoops before they can release it over there.
It's a good reminder that there are some pretty big ethical and legal questions we need to grapple with as we're going down this AI road. It's not all fun and games. Speaking of big players, what has Google been up to amidst all this AI excitement? They can't be happy about Microsoft stealing all the thunder, right?
Oh, Google's always up to something. One interesting development is they've been expanding their NotebookLM tool. Remember that? It launched a while back, basically an AI-powered research assistant to help users make sense of large amounts of text.
Right, I remember hearing about that. That could be a game changer for students, researchers, anyone who has to go through tons of information, right?
Exactly. Well, now they've added some pretty cool new capabilities. NotebookLM can now analyze and summarize YouTube videos, even audio files.
Ooh, seriously. So you could say, feed it a lecture or a podcast, and it would give you the key takeaways without you having to listen to the whole thing.
That's the idea. I mean, it's still early days, but the potential is huge. Think about how helpful that would be for people who learn best by listening rather than reading, or for anyone who's just short on time.
Absolutely. That's a game changer for accessibility for sure. It seems like Google is really emphasizing that user friendliness, making sure AI benefits everyone.
They are. And it seems to be resonating. They've actually seen a big jump in the number of professionals using NotebookLM, especially in fields like research and analysis, where you're dealing with tons of data.
That makes a lot of sense. Google's not stopping there, though, are they? What else is brewing in the Google AI labs?
We'll get this. They've just unveiled a way to search the internet using your camera.
Hold on, did I hear that right? Searching with your camera, how does that even work?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right? But it's Google, so you know they're not going to do something halfway. Imagine this. You're out and about, you see something that catches your eye, say a cool pair of shoes, but you have no idea what brand they are or where to find them. Well, with Google's new visual search, you just point your phone's camera at the shoes, and boom, Google analyzes the image, identifies the product, and even tells you where you can buy them online.
That is seriously wild. But how accurate can it be? I mean, can it really recognize specific products just from a picture?
It's a good question. The early reviews suggest it's surprisingly accurate, but of course the real test is how it performs in the real world. It'll be interesting to see how they tackle those challenges.
It really seems like Google is pulling out all the stops to stay ahead of the curve. Why do you think they're suddenly so focused on innovating their search experience? Is it the pressure from OpenAI and all the other players in the AI game?
It's hard to imagine that the competition isn't a factor, right? I mean, think about it. OpenAI just raised $6.6 billion. That's a lot of firepower they can use to attract top talent and develop groundbreaking new technologies. Google knows they can't afford to rest on their laurels.
It's like a high-stakes chess match playing out right in front of us. Speaking of OpenAI, I'm curious to circle back to their approach with Canvas. It's interesting. They seem laser focused on making AI accessible and user-friendly for everyone, not just big corporations.
Yeah, it's a real contrast in approaches, isn't it? You've got Google with their massive user base and this whole ecosystem they're weaving AI into. And then you've got OpenAI, more like a specialized tool maker, building these really powerful but still easy to use tools for anyone to pick up and use.
It's almost like a classic David and Goliath story, isn't it? The scrappy startup versus the established giant. OpenAI can afford to be a little more nimble, a little more daring in their approach, willing to try things that a company like Google, with their shareholders and their reputation to think about, might shy away from. It really makes you wonder, though, where does this leave the average user, the person who's not building these tools, but just trying to navigate this new world?
That's the million-dollar question. But honestly, I think the average user benefits from this competition. As these companies are duking it out for dominance, they're also pushing each other to innovate faster and faster. That means we get more powerful tools, more user-friendly interfaces, and hopefully AI that actually makes our lives easier and more fulfilling.
So maybe a rising tide really does lift all boats.
I think there's some truth to that. But it's important to remember that we're not just along for the ride. We have a choice in how we engage with these technologies, in what we create with them, in what we demand from the companies building them.
You're right. We need to be informed, engaged citizens in this new AI-powered world, not just passive consumers.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to experiment, to have fun with these new tools, but also don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. How is this technology being used? What are the potential consequences, both good and bad? And how can we ensure that AI is a force for good in the world?
Those are great questions to keep in mind and a perfect note to end on. As always, thanks for joining me for this deep dive into the ever-evolving world of AI, and to everyone listening, stay curious out there.
AI. Espresso. AI. Espresso. Your weekly shot of Gen AI news.